Okay, good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us this morning for our small business webinar. This year has been incredibly difficult for our small business owners. So my team and I have heard from hundreds of small business owners struggling to keep their doors open throughout the pandemic. And I really appreciate everyone who has spoken to me and reached out to my office with your thoughts and your concerns. Your feedback and your ideas have really been invaluable as I advocate for our businesses in Washington, for relief in Washington, and it's made some significant changes to the legislation. The first round of the Paycheck Protection Program played an important role in helping keep our businesses open through the summer. By the end of August, over $1 billion worth of PPP loans were secured by small businesses in the 11th Congressional District. Nonetheless, we knew that small businesses faced a difficult road ahead as the winter approached, which is why I fought hard for an additional round of PPP funding. I was proud to vote in favor of the Economic Aid Act in December, which provided $284 billion for a second round of PPP. Al Titone from the SBA is with us today and will go into more detail, but I want to highlight a few important changes. So small businesses that may have missed out on a first draw loan this summer once again have an opportunity to apply. And eligible businesses that exhausted their first draw loan are now able to apply for a second draw if they can demonstrate a certain revenue loss. My team and I heard many concerns about loan forgiveness, and simplifying this process was something that I worked to include in the final package this December. So the Economic Aid Act provides a simplified one-page certification for loans under $150,000. Congress also expanded the eligible expenses for PPP funds to include PPE and certain operational costs. So we have a great panel of guests with us today, and I'd like to thank all of you for being part of this event. As I mentioned, we have Al Titone, the New Jersey District Director from the Small Business Administration, who will be giving an overview of the reopened PPP program. We also have Mike Affuso with the New Jersey Bankers Association, who can offer some insight from the lender's perspective. And finally, we have Rana Shanawani from the Women's Center for Entrepreneurship in Chatham, who has been working with many small businesses and navigating the relief programs that are available. So I'm going to need to sign off here in a minute, but I want to leave you in these expert hands. And as always, my office is going to assist you with any issues you might have. Chris Williams and Cora are from our casework team, so feel free to contact my office anytime. We can be of assistance at 973-526-5668. And you can also follow me on Facebook, where we post updates regularly. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Al, and thank you all so much for joining us. Al?
Thank you, Congresswoman. Appreciate that. Sorry for the delay.
No worries.
I'm really doing this. You think
I know, and yet I still find that everyone is different.
But yep. So appreciate the opportunity. So what I'm going to do now, I have about 20-25 minutes. I'm going to go through a set of slides for everybody, and what we're going to see then is I'm going to show you, we're going to talk about the PPP, the current version, a little bit of the past, some other programs that are out there, but I'm going to be going through these quickly, folks. So don't worry about it. The Congresswoman's office will have a set of the slides they can share. I assume they can share. And obviously, if we have questions, once Mike's done, and Mike can correct me anything I got wrong, we'll move on from there. So, okay, now, next technical challenge. Can we do this? Share. There we go. Okay, so what we're doing here is we're kind of giving an overview of the 2021 COVID-19 Okay. Let's try tab. There we go. All right. Okay. I'm sorry, folks. This is taking me to the very end. Control. Let's try going home. There we go. Okay. And new challenge accepted and done. All right, so here we go. So as a Congresswoman noticed, I mentioned this round was intended to help really get to a lot more folks. Move this over here. Especially our hardest hit small businesses and minority and disadvantaged businesses. These are the programs that are available to you through the federal government, at least through SBA. We have the PPP, right? Debt relief, the EIDL program, and the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant. Now that has not taken applications yet, and I'm going to touch on those, but mainly we're really talking about the PPP here. So this is the big takeaways, right? The new legislation expanded eligibility. You can choose your covered period between 8 and 24 weeks. The second draw helps those folks who got the first draw, but were still really suffering. It allows for new expenses. There's a simplified form for the folks for 150,000 under, and it no longer subtracts the EIDL advance from the PP loan forgiveness. And to that last point, any of you who had money taken out will eventually have it put, you'll eventually have it put back into the funds for you. So when we say first draw PPP, that basically means anybody who has not, who did not take a loan out the first time, okay? It's just like a regular initial PPP, but a little better because there's more things you can take out. You can set your covered time. You can request an increase during this time for your original PPP loan amount. You have to have been in business by February 15th of 2020. And you have to apply as of right now, unless Congress changes it, by March 31st of 2021. So these are the newly eligible folks, housing cooperatives, destination marketing organizations, 501c6 organizations such as Chambers of Commerce. That was actually a big one that we had here in Jersey last year. So I was glad to see that. And certain types of news organizations. And you can see who's still eligible, everyone who was from last time. Okay, so the second draw, for those of you, maybe you had gotten a PPP previously and you still need some money. So this is basically what it is. The maximum loan amount is 2.5 times the average monthly 2019 or 2020 payroll costs, up to $2 million. For folks in the accommodation and food services sector, which we all know was super hard hit during this, they can actually go to 3.5 times the average monthly payroll costs, up to $2 million. Second draw applicants, you have to submit SBA Form 2483 SD when applying to the lender, but I'm sure Mike will be able to tell us all we need to know about that when it comes up later. Okay, so with the second draw, you had to have received the first draw PPP loan, and you have to have used it all for the entire amount only for eligible expenses. Can't have more than 300 employees, and you have to demonstrate a 25% reduction in gross receipts between comparable quarters in 2019 and 2020. You can basically pick the quarters, but there's got to be 25%, and that's a hard 25%. Can't be 24.98. You know, it's a hard 25%. So a couple of things with this. You don't have to be in the forgiveness process yet. You just have to have spent the money on eligible spends, okay? If you're applying for a second PPP, and I can't stress this enough, make sure this information, excuse me, in the second draw is identical to the first draw. So if you're in your address and you have apartment in your address, and in the first draw application, you abbreviated it as APT, do not spell it out in the second one, okay? And I can't stress this enough because we've seen a lot of folks kind of getting caught up because something's a little different. Maybe you said Al instead of Alfred. The applications have to be identical for a second draw. So how do you go about it? Well, you find a PPP lender. These are some areas you can take a look if you don't already have one. Complete the application. SBA issues of the lender the loan number, and after a few days, they do a lot of compliance. They check and they go back and forth. And again, this is where folks are kind of getting caught up because things are not exactly the same. I've been stressing this all along. Everybody on my staff has. We're not sure 100% every time something gets pulled. You know, why it gets pulled. I mean, they're actually improving the process, and Mike will be more up to date with than me probably on this. It's supposed to be fixed, if not now, within the next few days. But you don't want to have the application pulled because maybe you use the Social Security number in the first one and use the EIN number this time. Okay? Just make sure it's all identical. If the loan is not 100% forgiven, now, so before we get into this, just to be clear, with the PPP loan, you have to do 60% minimum payroll related expenses, right? But it doesn't have to be completely forgiven. So if that other 40% was not unqualified expenses, you only have to pay back the portion that was not under qualified expenses. So if you took out a $100,000 loan and you use $60,000 of it for PPP related expenses, the loan is only for 40 grand. And this sounds very attractive, right? It has a fixed interest rate of 1%, no requirement for collateral guarantee, no fees. But here's the trick, folks. It's a 5-year maturity. Payments start once borrower knows how much the loan will be forgiven. If borrowers do not apply for forgiveness, payments start 10 months after the last day of the covered period. Now, let me just be clear here. Depending on how much money you got, the 1% may sound attractive, but keep in mind that's 5-year maturity. So think what it costs you to do a 5-year note for $30,000, let's say. It's not chump change. So kind of keep that in mind as you're going through. Everything is through the lender. Okay, and I'm sure Michael will hit on this more. Again, idle advances are no longer deducted from it. The PPP loan funds the expenses paid are tax deductible. And I cannot talk to you about this. I am not IRS, and I have no idea how they're going to do that. There's a simplified forgiveness application for PP loans for under $150,000. Forgiven loans are not federally taxable income. So that was a big thing that came out after the other one. That is no longer true. This next stuff I'm going to kind of go through quickly just because I want folks to be aware of what else is out there, but I know we need to get to Mike, and I'm seeing questions piling up here. So idle, this is the economic injury disaster loan, okay? Still out there. It's good to the end of the year. 3.75 for businesses, 2.75 for nonprofits. This is a straight loan. This is not forgiven. Okay, so if you're doing this, it's a straight loan. Just keep that in mind. Now, you're probably hearing about this targeted idle advance. This is very, very specific, and it applies more to folks earlier through the first round that ended in December. You will be contacted by the agency if they think you qualify. You cannot apply for this. You cannot put your hat into the ring for this. I just want everybody to be aware of it in case somebody gets an email out of the blue from the SBA, okay? Again, with this, and I'm going to keep stressing this with all the programs, it's got to be identical to your original application. And again, for the first PPP, it's got to be identical to whatever is in your 2019 IRS return. And again, the application for targeted idle advance Yeah, so that's okay. Sorry, Chris. Okay, we're getting a lot of questions about this. It's Shuttered Venue Operators Grant. I can't really talk a lot to this. This kind of goes over the overview. If you go into sba.gov/SVOG, you can find all the information that we have for this. The applications are not open yet, and I do not know when they will open. This is a really good slide for cross eligibility. One thing for the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant that I can tell you, if you take out a PPP loan after December 27th, you will not qualify for the SVOG. So if you're thinking PPP loan now, it's either or. Also, just like last time, anybody who has an existing SBA loan of any type, you can get debt relief. Okay, and these are all the different programs. I want to stress, and we have one of them on here, we have a lot of help you can get here through the SBA, through our women's business centers, our small business development centers, and our SCORE offices. You can do that by going here, or you can just go to sba.gov/NJ, and on the left-hand corner of the top box, you'll see resource guide. Click in there. Aside from having all our resource partners, it also has a tremendous amount of general information. And here's our overall info. And I'm going to hand it to Chris now because I'm thinking my time is probably up.
Thanks, Al. This is very helpful. We appreciate your time. Next, we're going to turn it over to Mike Affuso from the New Jersey Bankers Association. And I can't thank Mike enough for being accessible throughout this whole pandemic and working with our office and resolving a lot of issues. I see a lot of you have put in questions, and Mike's already, I could see, following up with people sharing his contact info. So can't thank you enough on that front, Mike. Just generally speaking, if anyone does have a question, please use the Q&A feature. I believe it's at the bottom of your screen, and we'll get to these questions at the end. But I'll turn it over to Mike just for some brief tips on the PPP program and some things he's seeing overall from the lender's perspective.
Sure, and just as a way of starting, you know, first of all, thank you to Chris and to Congresswoman Sherrill. We've been working together, you know, through this whole pandemic and all the issues that come under the pandemic. And your office has been absolutely wonderful. Your staff has been absolutely wonderful to work with. Congresswoman's been a tireless advocate for the folks that she represents, and you know, we'll continue to work together on this. I am going to try to answer as much of the questions that are posed in the chat by sending my information out. For folks that I have not answered and you think that I'm the person to ask, please contact Chris. Some of the issues I really can't answer. The bank-specific ones we'll take offline, and we'll work together on and hopefully get you where you need to be. Al was really comprehensive in his overview. So the first thing that I would say is, if you are a first draw customer, go to the bank in which you do business as a business. That's really important. If your bank is not participating in PPP, I'm glad to help you find one that is. But as an entry-level issue, I would certainly tell you to go to your first bank. I also understand that there is this issue that Al raises about the fact that you really need to have identical information for the second draw as the first. I understand that during the pandemic, you have businesses that move, that choose to downsize, and that people might be different. The folks filing might be different. You know, glad to try to help you through that whole process also. But, you know, for folks that haven't made the change, any type of change, please ensure that the information is identical. There's also this issue that banks are faced with error codes from the SBA. And I know that that is has been an issue. I believe that SBA is trying to resolve that issue, but more to come on that. Unfortunately, I don't really have a solution for that one. As far as forgiveness goes, kudos to the Congresswoman for creating that simplified forgiveness. I think that's really important. If you look at the average loan for the first wave of PPP in New Jersey, it was around $110,000. So a simplified forgiveness form for under $150,000 certainly helps out. I know that there are some lenders that are looking to process the forgiveness in tandem to processing the second ask. So I do know that that's causing some degree of consternation, but I think that's an underwriting standard that banks are choosing to implement. Looking and comparing this round of PPP to the previous one, it certainly seems like there is less demand. I think folks may be willing to see what other alternatives there are. However, I implore businesses to use this. Last time, New Jersey received 20% in excess of what our fair share would be nationwide. So if you take the country and you divide it up, New Jersey represents about 2.7% of the population. We got about 3.1% of the total PPP ask. So, I really think folks should take the time. If you're on the fence, do it. I'm personally convincing as many businesses as I can do it. I think it certainly is important. And with that, as I said, I will try to get to as much Q&A as I can by passing my information along if I believe it's specific to me. If there are others that feel that I could be helpful, please reach out to the Congresswoman's office. They certainly know how to get a hold of me. And with that, I'll turn it back to Chris.
Thanks again, Mike. And next we have Rana Shanawani from the Women's Center for Entrepreneurship in Chatham. She's been another great resource partner with us as we're navigating the pandemic. Rana, correct me if I'm wrong, you're an SBA resource partner as well. So they were given, they work with a lot of SBA programs, but I'll let Rana get into that and I can turn it over to you. Rana, if you have a slideshow, you can use the screen sharing feature and you can go right ahead.
Thanks. It's wonderful to be partnering with everyone here and with the Congresswoman. We are a big advocate of helping micro businesses, as I know she is. And so it's wonderful to work in tandem with all of you and with the Congresswoman. The Women's Center for Entrepreneurship is indeed an SBA resource partner. We work both with the SBA and we are their, you could say, their field agents. We help in the community as much as we can. We are a 501c3 registered nonprofit and do anything that we can to help micro businesses. And I will share my screen with you to just get to the point. I'll be very brief. Let's see, I had it up. Yes, very good. Okay. So here is our class schedule, and I'm going to copy and paste this and put it into the chat. But you can see that we offer a very enormous variety of courses. Now, the courses aren't just classes. They are, you can call them almost group counseling. And they are on every subject that's possibly imaginable to a micro business. I'm gonna run through them super quick just to give you an idea of how we can help. We can help you set up bookkeeping. We are gonna be talking for Black History Month about grants made specifically for Black-owned businesses and BIPOC and women-owned businesses, how to build a WordPress website. We have a 12-week accelerator program for people who have existing businesses and really trying to pivot and expand. Employment issues for startups. We as well offer several classes, as you can see, on applying for the PPP, how to do tons of classes on everything that you could think of regarding marketing. How do you market your business? How do you get more clients? We have a support group. It's business counseling support group trademarks and copyrights, that's given by one of our law partners, Carter and English, that does pro bono work with us. And you can see it goes on and on. How to register your business. It's interesting. We have record numbers of people registering new businesses now, which is wonderful to see. And SEO, building a blog, etc. Now, I always say, if there's something here that you're looking for that you don't see, please let us know. We will do our best to find subject matter experts to bring in the class. And after the class, or even before, if you would like, you can also sign up for business counseling. Now, here is where the real magic happens. You request counseling, and if there was a specific instructor in any of those subjects that you took, you just come down, you fill out the form, and you can put the specific name of that instructor and say, I would like one-on-one time with the person who taught, let's say, bookkeeping or one of the marketing classes, and you can get one-on-one counseling with that person. And I will as well put that in the chat box. And if there's as well other, like I said, if there's other classes that you would like us to get, we can find them. And then we also have a ginormous network of partners that we can as well refer you to if we can't help you ourselves specifically. If anyone has questions for me, please let me know. I'm going to put both of those in the chat, how to access our classes and also how to access our one-on-one business counseling.
Great. Thank you so much, Rana. And with that, let's get to some of your questions. We have quite a few here, and let's try to get to as many as we can. If we, for whatever reason, if we don't get to your question, we're keeping track of them all, and we can follow up with you afterwards. So the first one, let's go to Josh. He would like to know, can I apply for a loan to get more equipment to get up and running again? Al, do you have any insight onto that? Let's see, you're muted.
I keep going to the wrong thing. Probably not. I mean, the idea was it helps for payroll related expensive. It's the PPP is not really there for you to get new loans. You can get a regular loan or SBA loan, you know, and depending how much you want, you could go to a group like Rana's who can help you with that. But the short answer would be no, probably not.
Okay. Next one, we have Susan. I thought now also 25% gross annual receipts. Sorry, I'm having a little trouble following this one, Susan. I thought now also 25% in gross annual receipts declined or more now also applies. Can we just clarify the circumstances around the 25% decline in revenue? How that works? I had a hard time following the question, but I think she's asking about the second draw requirements.
I guess she's asking gross. So you're comparing quarter to quarter. You can pick a quarter, and it is 25% difference in gross receipts. I think that's what you're asking.
Yeah, but I think along those same lines, Mr. Patel here, he was hit hard in Q2 and Q3 of 2020, but recovered in Q4. If we were below 25% in Q2 and Q3 from the previous year, can we still apply for the PPP program?
No, not for draw two. If you didn't have a PPP, you can go for the first, but the criteria is specifically you have to be at 25%. So if you're Q2 in 2019 and you're Q2 in 2020, if there is not at least a 25% difference, you cannot apply for the second draw, if that's what you're asking. You can, of course, if you had a loss, apply for the first draw, assuming you did not have a PPP the last time around.
Okay, so first draw might still be an option there. Great. Okay, this next one. I am applying for the second draw, but I have moved my business from New York to New Jersey. How will this change of address affect my PPP application?
I may throw this to Mike, but what I'm going to tell you to do is work very closely with your lender. Hopefully it's a local lender. It's not one of the big online guys. Mike, you have any insight on this one?
Yeah, that's what I would say. You know, and again, if you're struggling with your lender, please feel free to reach out to the Congresswoman's office. You know, I represent 75 bricks and mortar banks in New Jersey, but if you're dealing with a large online lender, I may not be able to help you with that. So Al certainly is correct.
Okay, we have an anonymous question. Are PPP loans available for a business that would create new jobs? Is there anything in PPP that would help
If
with
you
that?
are, again, this is kind of similar to that earlier question. Not really giving me all the information. So let me just say this. If you are a new business, there's a possibility for a first draw loan, but there are criteria you'd have to go into, but you still would have had to have been in business by February of last year. I believe it was February of last year. But there are other loan programs out there that are still there. So I mean, and let me stress this, folks, that although a lot of us are hurting during this time, there's been a lot of businesses that have become very successful during this time also. So if you are one who is actually still doing okay, the regular loan programs are still out there. Ours and everybody else's, our micro lending, our 7A, our 504. So I get it, the PPP can be very attractive, but if you don't qualify for it, it doesn't necessarily mean you can't get a loan elsewhere.
Great, thanks, Al. Rana, I'm going to toss this one to you. I think you might have been working with some sole proprietors. So as a sole proprietor, how should I document my payroll expenses out of the $20,000 loan? How do I make sure I have business checks payable to me? How do I divide the loan amount by a certain number out of pay periods? So how can a sole proprietor address some of these requirements?
We hear this a lot from our clients, which, by the way, I really want to emphasize that we help both women and men. Anyone is welcome to come through our doors and ask for assistance. And our staff really do answer all phone calls and all emails. We will get back to you. But to get to your question, to help with payroll, I see this from a lot from sole proprietors who by themselves, they're taking care of their own expenses. They haven't done a good job of documenting things, or they had their personal and business bank accounts combined into one. This is one of the things we just taught a class on this. It's critical that you have everything documented. You have your personal and your business accounts completely separate. Everything is documented on its own as a sole proprietor. You are an employee, and this has to be taken as a business that is as serious as if you were a business with 10 employees. So having it, doing payroll properly, whether it's in Excel or in bookkeeping and QuickBooks, we can help you with both of those things. Or if you want to go even further, you can hire a payroll company to help you with those things as well.
Thanks,
Rana. Chris, if I could just chime in on that.
Absolutely.
That's been our biggest
thoughts on anything
issue with sole proprietors, that they are not, they are combining their business income with their personal accounts. And it becomes very, very difficult to kind of parse that out if proper records were not kept.
Thanks, Mike. Next, let's go to Gregory. Will the shuttered venue grant include gyms and fitness centers that were forced to close from March to September? Al, do you know if there's anything in shuttered venues for gyms, or is that?
I don't think so. But again, you can look it up. The frequently asked questions are all there. That's the best thing I can tell you. We really can't talk about the SVOG because it hasn't opened yet.
Yep, I understand. Yeah, from what I've seen, it looks like that was geared towards more live entertainment sort of venues and performing arts and things like that. But fitness centers should be eligible for PPP provided they meet all that criteria. An anonymous question. If you're a sole proprietor and receiving unemployment, can you apply for PPP? Al, what do you think here?
Well, I think that gets a little tricky. I mean, if you're on unemployment, that means you're not employed. So you're a sole proprietor. I'm not sure, to be honest with you. I don't know. Either one of you folks have an idea on that one? I don't know for sure. I think it would be. I remember
with the first round, I'm not sure about this round if they were very specific, but the first round they were very specific about absolutely not. Either this or that, but not both. Right.
Because it's called it's basically double dipping, because the extra money that you're getting on unemployment is actually federal money that comes through the state. And there's a whole big thing with the federal government about it's essentially double dipping. Duplication of funds is what they call it. So
I would really caution people against doing that. I know people are hurting. But I also know the U.S. attorney is prosecuting people that commit PPP fraud. So I would just be really careful with and do the right thing.
Yeah. And to that point, thanks, Mike. Please keep in mind all these federal programs that you're getting money from are federal programs. Okay, so you start messing around with these. It's not like you're messing around with the local person. You're messing with the federal government, and they are going after people. Trust me, they are going after a lot of people, and even folks who may think they got away with it, they just haven't gotten to them yet. There's a lot of effort. The U.S. attorneys are hiring a whole bunch of other lawyers. So you really, I mean, I want you to use your programs if you qualify for them, but I don't think the anonymous was trying to play games, but Mike is 100% right. Be very careful here, folks. The last thing you want is some federal attorney knocking on your door.
Yeah, and in regards to unemployment, from what I understand, if you are caught, you will become disqualified in the future for when you really need it.
All right, our next question is for Paul. It's on loan forgiveness. Why are the provisions for loan forgiveness for sole proprietors so restrictive? Are any changes for that category expected? Mike, I think you touched on some of the loan forgiveness stuff earlier on. Could you clarify this?
I wish I could clarify it better, but I really can't. I mean, as far as what changes are expected, I think this $150,000 line that's been drawn, I think that's the best that you're going to do. Again, on the sole proprietor question, you're asking. There's this question of commingled funds. When you commingle your own personal money with the money of your quote unquote business, I think it lends itself to problems. So. Like Al said, you're taking money from the government. You should be prepared to be able to prove why it is that you should be forgiven.
And are there any for the one-page certification for forgiveness for loans under 150,000? Would that include sole proprietors?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And just so you know, we have no influence whatsoever on what goes into these. This is decided. Congress sets the outlines, and SBA and Treasury make the rules. So I'm pretty much like you. What they tell me it is what it is. I have no idea how they got there or why they got there. So
yeah, as far as any changes, I think that's directed towards us. And I know the Congresswoman fought really hard to get that simplified forgiveness in there. So I just wanted to make sure we clarify that that's available to sole proprietors as well. Let's see here. Robin asked when the shuttered venue grant is opening. Al, I think you said you weren't sure yet, right?
No idea. I suspect I'll find out when everybody else finds out.
Yep, and I know our office is eagerly awaiting more detail on that so we can get it out to the venues in our community. Next, we have Robert. What measures are being taken to address the commercial real estate market imploding in real time? I know, Al, I don't believe there's anything in PPP for real estate, but is there anything in EIDL or any of the other programs that might apply to commercial real estate?
I'm not sure what aspect of commercial, like rent owners, landlords. I'm looking for the question. I don't see it.
This is Robert, 1120. We might not have enough detail to get into this, but Robert, if you follow up with our office, we can see what we can find out for you.
Yeah. It's basically, I think he's talking about rental rolls and that kind of stuff. Again, this is not something that there's a great deal. One of the things that there is not a great deal of assistance for are landlords. You know, the best thing we basically tell folks is try to make sure all your tenants apply for the PPP loan, but there's no direct aid that I know of for landlords.
Okay, we have another question on unemployment insurance and PPP. I believe we addressed that. We should not be double dipping in both of those. We have a request for the slides. We will try to get those out to everybody. I believe we have your emails if you're a participant, so we can get those out. We have an anonymous question. How can you apply for the targeted EIDL? That would probably be a good one for Al. And
you cannot
piggyback off that. How can you double check if you might be eligible on that? Because I know it is a little bit more strict.
The answers to both is you cannot. The agency, through whatever formula they've developed, is going through it. It's mostly being targeted for very disadvantaged areas. So if you have a business in what is traditionally considered a disadvantaged area, you might have a shot at it, but you can apply for it. You can't check for qualifications. It's basically coming through the disaster folks at SBA.
Thanks for clarifying. We have another anonymous question. This one's about the shuttered venue operators grant. How is the 45% of loss of business accounted for from 2019 to 2020? Is it gross income versus earned income? They would like some clarification there.
I cannot speculate on anything with the SVOG. What I can tell you is that normally in any of these programs, it's based on gross. But I cannot tell you that that is what the SVOG will do. But anytime any kind of loan or anything like that is generally based on gross. But again, I've already said more than I should.
Thanks, Al. Let's see here. This might be a good one for Mike. If I started a forgiveness application but didn't finish, can I do the new simple form?
I think so. I think you should try.
Definitely worth a shot. Another request for the slides. Yes, we'll do our best to get those out to you. Let's see. Sally, this seems like it's very specific to your business. So if you don't mind, we'd like to follow up with you afterwards. And I'm just going through these here. We're seeing quite a few comments here. We appreciate those, and we're definitely making note of them. Okay, here's another one from Vinay. Hello, all. I am an LLC C-Corp owner. It's a real estate holding firm. I do not run a payroll. We file taxes with Form 1120 and use the profits as our income. I tried applying for PPP through Cliff Banks, but was told I need to either have a payroll, or if no payroll, use Schedule C form. As an LLC Corp, I use the 1120 form, no Schedule C. Is there any guidance here? Rana, is this something you've seen on your end at all?
I've never heard of that form that was just mentioned. What was it?
1120?
1120. No, I've only heard in terms of applying that only those two things are acceptable. So the Schedule C or payroll. Those are the only two things that I know of that are acceptable for PPP, unless Mike or Al has more information.
I do not.
All right, sorry, Vinay, let's, we do have your question here, so I can look into this more deeply afterwards. Brian would like to know, is there an expected minimum amount for forgiveness for a second draw? And minimum amount for forgiveness?
Well, so that could be taken a couple of different ways. So if you're talking for your second draw, did you have to have a certain minimum amount forgiven in the first loan that you took the first round? The answer is yes. It had to have been 100% forgivable. Doesn't mean you have to be in the forgiveness process, but it had to have been 100% forgivable. If, on the other hand, you're talking about with your second draw loan, is there a minimum amount that has to qualify for forgiveness? Technically, I don't know that there is, Mike. Is there? I don't think there is. But then you're going to have a 1% loan for 5 years, depending on how big it is. So you're probably better off getting a longer term loan. But I don't know. I mean, I know in the first loan there was a 60% minimum, but that's the only answer I have for you.
Thanks, Al. So the next one, is there talk of a third round of PPP? I ask this question because certain industries such as hotels, restaurants have been hit very, very hard, and 24 weeks may not be long enough. I think talk of a third round of PPP would be better directed for our office, but Al, could you speak to, I believe there might have been an extended covered period, or I'm sorry, there might have been a provision for restaurants and hospitality owners in terms of their loan size.
The provision was that they can take a higher percent rather than 2.5. They can do 3.5% of payroll, but it still caps out at 2 million. As to a third PPP, yeah, talk to the Congresswoman. That's the best I can tell you.
Of course, yep. So yeah, restaurants and hotels are eligible for their payroll sizes can go up to 3.5 times their monthly payroll instead of 2.5 times for other businesses.
And Chris, if I can, there's still a lot of money left in this round, folks, just so you're aware. So, and you never know, Congress may extend it, which they certainly can do. But as of right now, I don't even think we've gone through a third of the money, and it ends at the end of March. So there's still plenty of money in this round.
And I just to piggyback on that, I think it's really important that everyone listening continues to communicate with us and with Chris and with Congresswoman Sherrill's office. You can see that Congress is working hard. They have done so many iterations of this. They have made so many improvements, and every single one has been in favor of you guys, of the constituents, of the micro businesses and the small businesses. And they keep improving it. And how do they know? Because of the feedback. So if everyone listening has requests or has feedback, please continue to send it both to us and to, I'm sure it sounds like Chris, you guys are also always asking for feedback, and it's being listened to, and the process has gotten tremendously better, and like I said, in favor of micro businesses.
And I'm going to dump on Chris, because I'll be honest with you, Congress is they're going to listen a lot more to you folks than they are to another government guy telling them what's happening. So
we appreciate all your feedback. It's been great working with you all. But no, I got to echo what Congresswoman Sherrill said at the top. You know, your feedback throughout this whole thing has been really, really helpful. You know, a lot of you participated in our surveys, which were really huge in terms of the Congresswoman going back to the committees and fighting for the changes that a lot of you were asking for. So It's been great to work with all of you. Let's see, Robert, how is loan forgiveness calculated for the first draw? Any general insight here on first draw loan forgiveness?
That's facts and circumstances for me to answer that.
Yeah, but a lot of it's going to depend on loan size, right?
It depends on a couple of things. It depends on loan size. It depends on how they use the money. Did they use the money for all qualified expenses? And if not, they got to take that money out, and that becomes the loan. I mean, it's too many variables to answer that.
So Robert, if you have something more specific, we could follow up with you afterwards. Simon, when will we see loan disbursements or approval? Obviously, we can't speak to anyone's specific case, but Mike, do you have a general sense of how long from the approval process to when you see the funds hit your account?
Well, I know it was supposed to be rather quickly, but I also know that there have been complaints, to say that the least. So I would be setting expectations and doomed to fail if I gave you a specific answer to that.
Since it's my job to take those bows and arrows, I will tell you this: for applications that do not have, and I am stressing, do not have an issue, that they filled out everything right, they didn't get pulled. Once the lender submits it to SBA, SBA's taken 2 to 5 days, maybe a week right now, to review it, and then they're getting processed as quickly as 2 weeks. I've heard less than that, but now that assumes everything was correct in the application. So, but as soon as something is wrong in the application, it's anybody's guess how long it will take. I hate to tell you that, but that's just what it is right now.
Okay, our next question. This person received an EIDL loan. They want to know if it's forgivable and if they can still apply for a first draw PPP loan.
It is not forgivable, but you can still apply for a first draw PPP loan.
All right. And this next one is from Adrian, also for Al. Did you say you could choose any quarter from 2019 versus 2020 to show that 25% income loss for the second draw?
As long as you're comparing the same quarters in 2020. Yep.
All right, great.
Maybe first, second, third, or fourth. Yep.
Natalia, is this recording of this webinar going to be made available? We are recording it. We're going to try to make it available to everybody so you can follow up there as well. Let's see. Karen, please share an update on PPP and nonprofits. Al, could you clarify if nonprofits are eligible for PPP?
Yeah.
Very straightforward there. So
yeah.
Your nonprofits are eligible.
Yep.
An anonymous question: do bank statements count as payroll documentation? As a two-person LLC, we just take draws from the company as needed.
I don't think so. Either of you guys have more info on that? My gut says no. They are very specific about what forms that they accept.
Yeah, and that's the issue that we have with a lot of these very small micro businesses that, people are drawing out of it, really catch as catch can, which I understand, but it becomes virtually impossible to document.
Yeah. Kind of horse out of the barn already, but this is why you'll always hear us talking about it, and Rana and folks. You got to have separate accounts. You got to, even if it's doing it out of your basement, you got to set it up like a real business so that, God forbid, something like this happens, we can help you. It becomes much harder to help.
Let's see, Fernando, what about those who have not gotten any loans and had to resort to small unemployment insurance benefits? Are we not allowed to apply? So I know we've kind of tackled this a little bit earlier, but to phrase it another way, can you come off unemployment and then apply for a PPP loan?
Yeah, you still have to meet the qualifications to get a PPP loan. You still have to have been in business by February. You'll still have to show the loss, and you're going to have to still show that you're in business. Because as long as you're not on unemployment, you can look at it. But anybody who's looking over the program may be wondering, well, are you still in business if you were in unemployment? And you could very well be. You may have been using unemployment to supplement your business, but you can't double dip at the same time. But once you're off and you're no longer collecting, you should be able to still apply.
Correct. And it just makes sure that the weeks that you are certifying, so you certify each week that you're taking unemployment, make sure that those weeks that you certified are not the same weeks that you're applying for PPP, for those same weeks that's for payroll. So it has to be staggered. It can't be the same time period, unemployment and PPP.
Yep. Okay, we have an anonymous question for Rana. Are there loans and/or grants specific to mothers who are now shouldering homeschooling and hybrid learning and have had other significant losses in their businesses?
I'm hearing these discussions. Unfortunately, I haven't seen anything implemented or executed yet. It would be wonderful if that could take place at some point. And again, just keep contacting us, and maybe at some point, who knows how long this is going to last, but there does need to be a solution for parents who are homeschooling and trying to work.
Okay, I see an anonymous question from a trade show company. I believe I'm in touch with you guys, so we'll definitely be following up with you. Let's see. Okay, Victoria would like to know what loans are available to start a small business for minority women.
I'll take that. So
Go
we
ahead,
actually have a class coming up specifically on that. Let me take you straight there. It's about not just loans, but also grants. So please join us today at 3 o'clock for this class, specifically for opportunities for women and people of color, specifically about funding grants and loans.
Okay, and it's 12 o'clock, so I think that's about all we had time for, and I believe Al had to jump off, so, but we appreciate Mike and Rana joining us. We thank everyone for participating. If we didn't get to your question, we are keeping a list, so we'll follow up with you directly after that. We'll also try to share the slides with everybody, and we'll see if we can get this recording up on our website as well. But we can't thank you enough for joining us on behalf of the Congresswoman. And like I said, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to our office. Our number is 973-526-5668. And with that, we look forward to hearing from everybody. But thank you to Mike, Rana, and Al, and the Congresswoman for joining us this morning. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.